Welcome to the Please Suck Less podcast, a podcast where one guy shares his views of where the fire service can improve. Thanks for listening. Hello and welcome to this episode of the Please Suck Less podcast. I'm your host, David Polikoff. So this particular podcast, I'm going to get a little political. I know a lot of people don't like to dip into politics, and I'm not a big fan of dipping into politics either, but I think that there's things out there that have been kind of on my mind. Most of it will just kind of deal with the state that I live in, which is Maryland, and some of the local politics that actually kind of transcend into the national politics. But anyway, with that being said, most people get turned off by talking politics, but don't care. It's my show. So anyway, first and foremost, for those that know me, know my wife's a nurse. One of the things that bothers me is that nurses don't have the protections that first responders have. Last year, a law was passed making an assault on a first responder a felony. And that's punishable by, I think, $5,000 fine and up to 10 years in jail for an assault on a first responder. My wife, being a nurse, is not afforded the same protection that I am as a firefighter. Now, to take that into perspective, my wife's been a nurse for about 20 years now. And in that 20 years, she's probably been assaulted probably 3 or 4 times and threatened many times, but have no protection, or there's no recourse for that. One of the times that she was assaulted was when she was pregnant with our first child. And, luckily nothing, she wasn't hurt, but it was just the fact that hands were laid on her. But she doesn't get the protection that I get as a firefighter. If somebody was to put their hands on me, I could press charges. And again, that person could be up to, $5,000 fine and up to 10 years in jail. And that's in the state of Maryland. I don't know what the laws are anywhere else. She also doesn't have the comfort of having a union that can protect her. So she's kind of left out in the wind. So about 6 months ago, I left an open letter to the governor of Maryland, asking him why they, as in nurses, healthcare workers, aren't afforded the same protections from the patients that they serve, and their family members for that matter, that first responders are. And this has been an open letter. I even sent a direct message to his office, and to this day, zero response. Not even, hey, thanks for reaching out, blah, 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 the same typical BS that you get from politicians. Not one word. Now, when I did a little digging, I found out that there was they had commissioned a committee to study if the assaults that were on nurses. And as far as I know, that study didn't go anywhere. They drafted a big report. God knows how much money that costed us for them to put that together. And to this day, nothing has come out of it. So basically, they had a committee about having a committee about looking into protecting healthcare workers. So you start to ask yourself, the state of Maryland, we're taxed for everything. What are our politicians doing for us? We're taxed higher than most states. The politicians that we send, and let's be really honest about this. We are not sending the brightest people to represent us. And I guess what really kind of pisses me off is that we continue to elect the same people over and over and over again, and they do nothing for the citizens in the state. They may talk a big game, but at the end of the day, they do nothing. They raise taxes. They spend money on shit that we don't need. And then they have to continually raise the taxes in order to pay for the stuff that they continually want to have, all these special interest programs. So In particular, we have Representative Jamie Raskin, and he's been in the news a lot lately. This dummy, and yes, that's my personal opinion, he's more concerned about what Trump is doing instead of actually tackling the issues in the state that he's supposed to represent. This guy is an unhinged idiot, and he's collecting a salary on the backs of the Marylanders, and they're not getting anything in return from this guy. Let's dig into a little bit about some of the things that's been going on in our state. In particular, we'll talk about the educational system. Now, there's been a lot of talk about education and the programs that are going into the schools, but I want to specifically talk about the Baltimore City schools. Baltimore City schools budget, their annual budget is $1.7 billion with a B, $billion a year to run that school system. I want to say it's something like the third highest budget for public schools in the country. And what does the citizens of Baltimore City get out of that? And not just the citizens of Baltimore City, but my taxes pay for that as well. They had a $1.7 billion budget, one of the highest in the nation. It boasts some of the lowest math scores in the country, okay? 13 Baltimore City high schools had a zero student score proficient score in math. Little tongue twister there. 0 students scored proficient in math. At the 5 best performing schools in Baltimore City, 809 students took the state math test. Only 11% scored proficient, and no one is held accountable. No politicians. They're more concerned about what Trump is doing. They're more concerned about what the Republicans are doing. And yes, Maryland is a Democratic state, but they do nothing to fix the problem. They just throw more and more money out of it. Does it piss me off? Absolutely. It should piss off all the citizens in the state of Maryland. Granted, we are not sending the smartest people to represent us, and I don't get it. The people that supposed to have their finger on the pulse of what's going on in this country, what's going on in our state, spending millions and millions and millions of dollars, and we're getting nothing in return. You know, you go to the store, you want to buy groceries for a week for a family of 4, it's $700 for a cart of groceries. It's asinine. So I ask Marylanders, I beg you, stop voting the same way every single time. I don't care if you vote Republican or Democrat, but please take a look at the candidates that are running. Listen to what they have to say. Listen to the incumbents that promise you all of these things, and they have never delivered anything to any citizen in the state of Maryland. It's an absolute shit show. And yet we keep voting in the same clowns over and over and over again. And again, I'm just talking about Maryland, but I have to think that it's all over the country. Here's another shocking story that I just heard. We're going to talk a little bit about Oregon. Yes, on the West Coast in Oregon, they're considering reversing the decriminalization of hard drugs. Why? Because there's been a spike in crime and a spike in overdose deaths. The state of Oregon is on pace to have 1,200 deaths from overdose, hard drugs. That's 4 deaths a day. The people of Oregon voted for this. And now they're looking at it and thinking, maybe that wasn't a good idea. A blind person could have seen that coming. It's asinine that you watch TV and you look at these people screaming and carrying on the TV about whatever, nonsense. And they're not even representing or helping the people that have elected them and put them in that position. And then finally, I want to talk a little bit about the policing that's going on in the country. Now, don't get me wrong. I love cops. We work hand in hand with the cops. But the problem that we're having is no criminals are being arrested. My daughter works retail part-time while she's going to college. She literally watched somebody walk into her store with a duffel bag, grab probably about $3,000 or $4,000 worth of cosmetics and colognes, perfumes, things like that, into a duffel bag and casually walked out of the store. Nobody could stop this person. You call the police, they come out and take a report, but they know if they arrest that person, these dullards that represent our state aren't going to press charges. Why? Well, because laws are racist. You know what's racist? Is allowing people to take advantage of people of all colors. Laws are not racist. People are idiots. I don't get it. I don't understand how we've gotten into this position. And we see it every day. No one's being held accountable. No one's being arrested. I know the police have a tough job. Why? Because somebody pointed the finger back in 2020 and said that all cops are racist, and they boxed them in from doing their jobs to the point that where police, if they want to provide a paycheck and put food on the table, they have to scrutinize every little teeny thing that they do, because they know if somebody doesn't like what they do, they file a complaint, their job's on the line just from doing their job. And these politicians are pushing this crap. I would love for a politician to have to spend a 24-hour shift or 12-hour shift, whatever the police work, and let them ride around in a high-crime neighborhood and ask them, what would you do in this situation? Because guaranteed they don't have the slightest idea, because it all goes back to we're not putting the smartest people into positions of leadership, of authority. We're putting the dumbest, stupidest people out there, and quite frankly, the most corrupt. How many times have you seen a politician go in with no money and come out with millions? That person's corrupt, and nothing's done about it. Wrapping this all up, I know it's a rant. I know it deals with politics, but I'm just sick and tired of seeing our state being drugged down into this hellhole because of the stupidest people that we have representing us in the state and representing us in Congress not doing their job. They're more concerned about what the other party's doing. They're more concerned about getting their 15 minutes of fame on TV. They're so concerned with what Donald Trump's doing. Who gives a crap? The people decide who becomes the president, not the politicians. It's time for the politicians to step up and start doing what their constituents want. They talk a big game. It's time to start standing up and doing what's right for the people. And to the people that are listening out there, stop voting these idiots in if you know they're not going to do the job. Stop voting for somebody just because they have a D or an R next to their name. That's bullshit. Use your vote. Use your voice. Get these idiots out. Find people that are going to represent us. Turn our state back into the great state that it was, and allow these police officers to start doing their jobs. Allow the laws to start holding people accountable. End of rant. And to you politicians out there, it's time for you to step up to the plate. Live up to the expectations that the Marylanders have for you. Stop sucking. Do better. Thanks for listening to the Please Suck Less podcast. If you like what you hear, you can send us a note through Instagram at Please Suck Less. There you can just send us a message. Thanks for listening.